It's time now for County-Wide, a presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. You'll hear about the interesting issues and happenings that affect all our lives. Here's today's County-Wide.
We welcome you to the program. It is County-Wide. I'm Brad Miller, and a guest again in our studio this morning, Tim Carter, Yavapai County School Superintendent. Yes, we talked with Tim on our last exciting episode of County-Wide, but Tim is back because a lot of things that we can talk to in Tim Carter's final year of service as Yavapai County School Superintendent, retiring after 20 years in this position at the end of this calendar year. And again, we say thank you for that. Congratulations on your retirement. And I know you've got something up your sleeve that you won't share with me today, but that's okay. Let's talk a little bit about, I'm chuckling and I shouldn't because I know we're kind of tired of hearing the word COVID on every account, but the lingering impacts of COVID on our learning bodies today is still there, whether it's the teachers, the students themselves. It's a big, huge topic. We've only got a few minutes, but when I say COVID, what does that kind of bring to you in terms of where we are, what kids missed, what they can get back and have, and things that they just can't? Where are we today in terms of the COVID recovery, if you will?
Well, that, first of all, is a great question. And I would just remind everybody that that was something unlike anything America or Arizona or the Verde Valley had ever experienced in the history of as long as we've been around.
Right.
The disruption that it caused to instruction over a 2-year window where students were either not in school or they were in school for a while and they were back out of school for a while. Some were trying to get packets delivered to them. Some were trying to do this online. And the reality is that the disruption that caused was different for every single student.
Yeah.
And even for some students, it was different depending on what subject they were engaged in at the time or subjects or what grade level.
Right.
And it's important that people understand that in America, and certainly you can look at the state standards in Arizona, just go to the Arizona School Boards Association or the state board website, either one, and you can see all of the standards that are required. They build upon each other. So I have to know certain things before I'm prepared to go to the next thing.
Right.
And so if I was in third grade or fourth grade when this happened, that would have had dramatic impact on what's going to happen to me immediately after that.
You bet.
Based on what I lost. So we are still trying to recover from that. And there are all sorts of things at the state level, the county level, and the local school level where I think we're making great progress, but there still is work to do. So that's the first and probably the foremost thing. The second thing, one of the things that we tried to do in many cases was to have instruction go online. And in some cases we were able to do that, but in most cases we weren't. And it wasn't because the schools aren't connected, because they are. It was because the families, the homes themselves either weren't connected or weren't connected with the bandwidth that they needed. If mom and dad and the two kids, for example, are home and they're all on the computer at approximately the same time, most folks didn't have the bandwidth they needed to do that. So one of the things that we had already started was a process of trying to bring broadband into people's homes. And we had been successful on 3 different grants, and we had connected all 101 of our campuses. And now we're working through the county through a couple of federal grants where we are have $20 million, and we are identifying communities that simply don't have the adequate broadband. And one of the areas that the county is currently in the process of funding is the Verde Villages, which is just to the east of Cottonwood on both sides of Highway 260. And that is going to serve literally hundreds and hundreds of homes. And it will be fiber to the premises, and it's going to be up to those people whether they want to make use of that. But at least it will be next to their home, and they have the ability to access it if they want to. and that is through a contract from Sparklight. So that's obviously another thing that we think is pretty important.
Let me hold you right there for a sec. Let me understand correctly. The broadband build-out, if you will, kind of started prior to COVID?
The build-out started prior to COVID to the schools.
Gotcha.
We had a series of 3 grants that allowed us to do that.
Okay.
But the 3 grants that we have had, the 2 grants that we've had since then were directly related to COVID.
Okay.
Of how do we get broadband into the homes. So you have what's called the middle mile, where it goes from the initial connection through major transportation routes, like along Highway 17, for example. Mm-hmm. But how do you then get it from that to the home or the business?
Sure.
And so we refer to that as the final mile. That's what we're working on right now.
And when you started in education, did you think you would be a broadband expert by the time you...
Well, what you need to realize is when I started in education in 1973, we didn't know what a cell phone was.
Yeah.
We didn't have computers. We had no idea what were you talking about when you say broadband? We would have never heard of that.
How does that apply?
I mean, if you ever want to have a history, we can go back and talk about there was no such thing as special education. There was no such thing as open enrollment.
That's exactly what I want to do.
There you go.
We'll do that, my soon-to-retire friend, toward the end of the year. Your perspectives on public education are unparalleled, and we will tap your brain for that before you wrap it up. But you still have a lot of work to do, and I interrupted you. It seems like, we think, well, COVID, is that going to happen again? Hopefully, no. But it seems like there will be practical applications with this build-out of broadband, even if we never need it the way we needed it during COVID, in that what it can supply for kids, getting them hooked up online and having access to educators or whatever it is going to be a good thing all the way around.
And it does 2 other things that are extremely important. One is it gives families the option of deciding what kind of educational instruction do they want for their child. Mm-hmm. Many of them want it to be face-to-face.
Yeah.
They want it to have athletics and band and music and drama and
Sure.
those kind of things. But we have a lot of parents and a lot of kids that are very happy with online instruction. And if that's what they want, that's what they should be able to have.
Even if it's in a segmented way, a little of both.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is absolutely true.
And that's happening.
And then the other issue, which I think is a little problematic from the standpoint that we're still dealing with, and that is the loss of teachers. We had a lot of people who simply walked away, or when I say walk away, I mean they left the profession. They didn't walk away from the kids or the job they had at the time. But they're no longer in the profession. They've gone on to do something else. And then the other issue that has been part of that is trying to find certificated teachers and trying to identify a manner in which we can make them more productive than we have been in the past. And all of that is challenged by things like COVID and lack of broadband and those kind of things. So
right.
we're having to work through lots of those issues, but I think we're in a much better place today than we were back then to address those kinds of issues going forward.
Let's do this. We need to take a little break, so we'll do that. And when we come back, I saw something this week, or last week actually, it was in the paper, about school funding and budgeting. And there's a noticeable shift in a given district's expenditure, operations, administration, those kinds of things. Am I on the right track here?
Yes, you are.
Oh, okay. Thank goodness, because otherwise I really look silly. Tim Carter knows how to talk about these issues, and that's why he's our guest today. I'm Brad Miller. It's Countywide. We'll be back right after this.
Life changes, then it changes again. Predicting the unexpected in life is impossible. That's why it's called unexpected. So when it comes to financial goals, our philosophy is don't predict, prepare. Hi, I'm Edward Jones financial advisor Matthias Sandoval. A job loss, change in health, or a loss of a loved one can have a big impact on your family's financial security. Let's work together to help make sure you're equipped for life's unexpected events. Call our office to schedule a face-to-face appointment.
Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Member SIPC.
Verde Solaire, your hometown heating, air conditioning, and plumbing company in the Verde Valley, and your trusted North Central Arizona Goodman dealer. Goodman is a name you can trust with the revolutionary Comfort Bridge technology factory installed into select Goodman gas furnaces and air handlers to ensure the entire system operates at peak energy efficient performance. Verde Solaire offers free in-home estimates Locally owned and operated since 1983. Visit them at verdisolaire.com. Better, cleaner, faster.
Let's talk. That's the message from Jonna Randall Murdoch, your local Farm Bureau agent, providing a personal touch when making insurance and financial decisions. Jonna will simplify your insurance needs while offering competitive pricing. Let's talk auto, home, life, and farm. Call Jonna at Farm Bureau today at 928-649-8686. Your Cottonwood Farm Bureau property and casualty insurance company. At Farm Bureau, they insure more than just farms.
We welcome you back to the program. Again, I'm Brad Miller, and our guest today is Tim Carter, Yavapai County School Superintendent. The second of two parts to this program, talking initially here about COVID, and oh gosh, what a mess and a stress it has left on educators and, most importantly, students and their families. And it's being recovered. The recovery continues with our own local public schools as it does across the entire globe. Bounce back if we can, Tim. You mentioned teacher loss, and COVID saw that underlined as it did so many different kinds of things. A lot of folks, as you said, are not career tracking primary education teachers, which is what we need. And I think most districts across the country, most states, would probably be able to say very similar kinds of things. What are we doing to address that? Are there incentive plans available? What's kind of coming down the pipeline to help with that?
Well, one of the things that I think that districts and charters are much more concerned about than historically they have been in the past is kind of growing your own. I mean, who in your community, who already on your campus might be in a position with a little bit of additional training, they might need to finish up a degree or get a certificate, could very easily transition into becoming a teacher. I mean, the reality is, if I've got a bank teller who's used to working with the public, that person might be a great math teacher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I mean, when we think about it, we think about those kind of things. So the grow your own system is very good. Trying to educate students with different modalities. I mean, my daughter got her entire master's degree online. She never stepped foot on the university that she graduated from.
Wow.
It was all done from her living room at home.
More access than ever.
And for her, that worked well. I mean, now for me, that wouldn't work at all.
Right.
That's not my type of instruction.
Mm-hmm.
But almost every school has identified one or more strategies to help them identify potential teachers and to help get them in line to be able to be employed. The state of Arizona, I think, has done a really good job of modifying some of their certification requirements to allow that to happen over a period of time. It's almost like an apprenticeship in some cases. And so I think there's certainly a lot more flexibility than there was 10 or 15 years ago. And I think that is probably the wave of the future.
I've sat across the table on this program and many others for a long, long time, listening to folks that are high up, superintendent levels to principal levels, administrators for many of the districts, if not almost all of them, over many, many years. And a constant drumbeat seems to be funding from the state level. Now, there's always two sides. All throw money at it. That's going to be one. But the other side is going to be funding is going to correlate to attendance, to test scores, to all of the results that we want to see when these different kinds of reports come out about how Arizona ranks in primary education. Is funding the name of the game? Or would that solve these problems? Would it ease them? Is it just another piece of a lot of things that got to happen?
Well, I think funding is another piece of the puzzle. It's an important piece of the puzzle. You know, if we realize that 85% of a school district budget is in people, it's in salaries and benefits. Right. That means the other 15% is everything else you do. So once you've hired your instructional and support staff, that is the biggest part of your budget. And without a doubt, it's a competitive marketplace. I mean, most of our teachers could walk right out of that classroom and right into the private sector or another government entity and potentially make a lot more money.
Right.
And so is it part of the puzzle? Yes, it is. Is it the only thing? Absolutely not.
Yeah. One more piece as we kind of follow that COVID track that we were talking about, and here again something you did mention to me before we open the mics I'd like to share with the audience, and you said that was confusion and distrust among parents. Some of the COVID fallout. It seemed like it depending on which news channel you looked at, which newspaper you picked up, which items you scrolled on your phone, you could see this opinion and that opinion, and they'd be 360 degrees different on everything about that disease and what it was and what it wasn't, how it was handled or mishandled, and so on. Is that a lingering effect, and is that something that the next generation of educators is going to have to contend with?
I believe it is
issue.
a lingering effect, and I do believe that future educators are going to have to deal with it.
Yeah.
I think there was just a lot of frustration, and I don't think either one of us are trying to have your listeners believe that we don't think that frustration was real. And there's nothing more dear to parents than their children.
Right.
It's just that simple.
You can understand it.
And so I need to do what's best for my child, and I have to find a strategy that works for my child, where a school is trying to look at a more collective, holistic view of that. And the reality is I think there were some parents who simply didn't like the answers that they were getting from school districts. And we can argue about whether who was right and who was wrong in that, but it created this gulf. And unfortunately, what we found was that instead of the parents being willing to come into the schools, or the schools being willing to go out to the parents and have some discussion about, here's our mutual concern, how do we find a solution, they walked away from each other.
Yeah.
And I think that is one of the reasons why the popularity of the Empowerment Scholarship accounts have taken off the way it has, it gives the parents control. Here's your money. You decide. Do you want a private school? Do you want a homeschool? Do you want some kind of a vocational program? Do you want an online program? You decide. And that is having a profound impact on public education.
It would seem to be probably one of, if not the biggest, in terms of funding. We're talking about vouchers, the big word, or no?
Well, yes. In Arizona, it's called an ESA, or an Empowerment Scholarship account. But most of your listeners would know it as a voucher.
Right.
Certainly Arizona is one of the states that has really headed down that road in a pretty significant manner. And I think over time there are going to be some modifications, because I think we're starting to identify issues now that I'm not sure were thought through well, but I think they're being thought about now, and I think you'll see some modifications. I'm not suggesting that ESAs will ever go away,
right?
But I think there will certainly be a lot more accountability provided to them, or required of them.
Right. Are people kind of going into the? I can only paraphrase, but it kind of made sense to me that a part of your taxes as a dweller in a city is that you have parks and things like that, and you can't take portion of your tax assessment for what you pay for what goes to parks and recreation and join a private golf club. And if you put schools in kind of the same way, that vouchers are kind of like doing that with public education. I don't know if I'm repeating that analogy very well, but it made sense to me.
Well, I will tell you there are definitely multiple camps out there, and the one camp is that a person who pays taxes should be able to, in some regard, direct where those taxes go and what services they should receive. Government, however, which is the entities, whether it's a city council or a school board or a state legislature or a governor or whoever it is the one that's actually establishing those laws or rules or policies. And sometimes what the parent or what the individual wants and what government is willing to do are two different things.
Oh, yeah.
So I have heard both of those, that
you bet.
I'm a taxpayer. I should be able to direct my dollars where I want them to go across the board of services that government provides. But then on the other side, of since when is it okay to take public funds and use it for a private purpose?
Yeah.
And their argument is that this is the private purpose that's important to me. Well, okay, but you have a public entity over here trying to provide that service as well. And so at some point in time here, and I don't know when that's going to be into the future, there's going to have to be some meeting of the minds about private versus public versus allow individuals to kind of have more freedom than they used to have.
Yeah. I see, as a devil's advocate here, to me, it's like, well, but I would prefer that my tax money doesn't go toward bombs. It goes toward arts programs. I'm just saying that to parse it. How far out can you carry that before it snaps?
And that's a really good point. But we also need to realize that every individual has that same thought process, but they don't all agree on what those answers are.
And therein lies the rub.
There it is.
We need to take another short break. We'll come back. Always interesting and exciting conversation with our Yavapai County School Superintendent, Tim Carter. I'm Brad Miller. It's Countywide. We'll break it. Be right back.
Life changes, then it changes again. Predicting the unexpected in life is impossible. That's why it's called unexpected. So when it comes to financial goals, our philosophy is don't predict, prepare. Hi, I'm Edward Jones financial advisor Matthias Sandoval. A job loss, change in health, or a loss of a loved one can have a big impact on your family's financial security. Let's work together to help make sure you're equipped for life's unexpected events. Call our office to schedule a face-to-face appointment.
Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Member SIPC.
Verde Solaire, your hometown heating, air conditioning, and plumbing company in the Verde Valley, and your trusted North Central Arizona Goodman dealer. Goodman is a name you can trust with the revolutionary Comfort Bridge technology factory installed into select Goodman gas furnaces and air handlers to ensure the entire system operates at peak energy efficient performance. Verde Solaire offers free in-home estimates, locally owned and operated since 1983. Visit them at verdesolaire.com. Better, cleaner, faster.
Let's talk. That's the message from Jonna Randall Murdoch, your local Farm Bureau agent, providing a personal touch when making insurance and financial decisions. Jonna will simplify your insurance needs while offering competitive pricing. Let's talk auto, home, life, and farm. Call Jonna at Farm Bureau today at 928-649-8686. Your Cottonwood Farm Bureau property and casualty insurance company. At Farm Bureau, they insure more than just farms.
We come back, just our final closing segment with Tim Carter. I could talk to you all day, sir, like you've been in front of classrooms before, the way you speak. And
well, thank you. And I enjoy our conversations very much.
I have very much for a long, long time. And again, Tim Carter retiring at the end of this school year. We will have him back in studio to talk about a number of things, kind of a career retrospective. I would like to hear about the changes that have occurred over your many years and many educational highlights. One final thing, as we did on our previous segment together, school boards. There's a lot of them, particularly in the Verde Valley, that are looking for school board candidates and folks to become a part of that. How can they find information about doing that?
And thank you for asking that question. There are 7 districts in the Verde Valley. Sedona Oak Creek is the only one that has a full slate of candidates, and that doesn't mean that other people couldn't still come in and pull a packet. But the other 6 all have seats that are unfilled at this point. That means there's no candidates for them.
Okay.
And we would be more than happy to chat with people if they have questions. I've been giving people my personal cell number, 928-925-6560. They can go to our website at ycesa.com. It stands for Yavapai County Education Service Agency.com. Or they can simply go online and put in Tim Carter, and I think all that information will pop right up for people. And Jen Nelson, who is our elections director, is happy to chat with people as well. But it would really be nice if we had a full complement of candidates for voters to pick from.
You will find it rewarding. Ask a candidate who's been there and done those things over so long. One such person, 40, what did you say? You've got a board member?
43 years.
43 years, finding that rewarding and valuable position as a volunteer, as a board member in their respective district. Our guest, Tim Carter, Yavapai County School Superintendent. I'm Brad Miller. It's Countywide, and we'll see you next time.
This has been Countywide. Listen in each Tuesday and Thursday at this time. If you have a topic or guest idea that you'd like to suggest, email us, news@myradioplace.com.